When we identify our natural strengths and talents, we also identify what we're less strong in. And rather than hyper-focusing on those weaknesses, we can say, wow, how can I use my talents in a different way to still accomplish that goal? Or better yet, we are designed to be interpersonal creatures.
Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where each week we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults. I'm your host, Audrey Monkey. I'm a summer camp director, writer, and speaker, and I've had the privilege of working with thousands of children, teenagers, young adult counselors, and parents over the past 3 decades. My husband Steve and I are raising 5 kids who currently range in age from 15 to 25. So my interest in raising kind, optimistic, self-reliant kids who become thriving adults is personal as well as professional. Hi, Sunshine Parenting listeners. I have some really exciting news to share. My book, Happy Campers, 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults, comes out on May 7th and is available for pre-order now. One of my favorite endorsements from early readers of the book came from one of my parenting education heroes, Dr. Michael Thompson. He says, Happy Campers is a joyful and wise parenting book. Drawing on her lifetime of experience as a camper, camp counselor, and camp director, Audrey Monkey shows us what is most important in the lives of children. She then takes the next step and teaches parents how they can recreate the magic of camp in their own homes. I have never read a more optimistic and well-grounded guide to parenting. For pre-order information about my book, visit happycampersbook.com. You'll find links to all your favorite book retailers there where you can pre-order your copy. Once you've pre-ordered, complete the pre-order form, and I'd be excited to send you some fun freebies, including the first chapter of the book in PDF form. It's called Camp Secret Number 1, Connection Comes First. I'll also send you an invitation to join my private Facebook group where I'll be discussing Happy Campers and sharing all kinds of resources, videos, and chats. Thank you so much for pre-ordering your copy of Happy Campers. In this episode of the podcast, my friend Sara Kuljis and I continue our series called Encouragements for Parents. This episode is titled, Comparison is the Thief of Parenting Joy. We talk about the importance of finding the strengths in our kids and in ourselves. Enjoy the episode. Well, I'm so excited to have Sara Kuljis back on the podcast this week. We're continuing our series on encouragements for parents. And this week, our theme is Comparison is the Thief of Joy. So welcome back, Sara.
Thank you for having me back. This is a really important topic to me that I'm so passionate about. So I'm glad we get to explore it today.
Definitely. So before we started recording, we were trying to identify what is the problem or the challenge that we're trying to help with in this episode. And we decided that it's just this general feeling that our kids have, and we often have, that we are just not enough, that whatever we're doing is not good enough, that, we're kind of looking at everybody else's highlight reel and thinking that our reality just doesn't compare. And so I'm just excited to just explore this idea. And we'll first talk about our kids, and then we'll talk about ourselves. So why don't we talk first about the problem with our kids feeling not enough? Where do you think that comes from, Sara?
Well, I think that, we're in a competitive society. School is competitive. Getting into colleges feels competitive. Club sports has been elevated to a remarkable level of importance, and that's competitive. We as parents were anxious this decade or this generation about our kids being prepared for the future, and our urgency and our fear, I think, leaks out to our kids. And I need an A in every subject, even those I'm not wired for. I need to, make the club team and the varsity team. And I also need to make time to volunteer. And I also need to find the cure for cancer. And I'm 12. And all things are rooted in this wonderful place of wanting the most for our kids. But that's a lot to lay on young people. And more I'm hearing camper age kids, young kids, all the way through college kids saying, I never feel like enough because of that deep sense that I need to be excellent at everything and I need to be perfect at everything. And fact of the matter is human beings aren't designed to be excellent at everything. We each have gifts and talents and interests that are different from the next person. And that's supposed to be that way.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, you and I have talked before, just the new science of strengths. I mean, I know it's been around for a long time, but it's become very mainstream now, the, personality testing and strengths testing. And I think those things do make us all feel better when we look at how, oh my gosh, these things that rise to the top in some kind of strengths test really do resonate. And like, oh my gosh, that is something that I'm really good at. And it makes you feel good to realize that, wow, I have this combination of strengths that's uniquely me. And that's why I kind of enjoy these types of things more than other things. And so I love that you have really gone in depth with becoming a strengths coach and working with both individuals and teams on their strengths. So why don't you talk a little bit about kind of what you've learned from going through your training, which is on the Gallup strengths, and what you know about people now after learning all this?
It's been a couple years now that I've been a Gallup certified strengths finder coach. And I was so excited to find this tool that really reinforced what we've been seeing for years and years. And that is that each human being is designed with some special assets. They're secret weapons, their superpowers. And when we can help young people, and frankly, older people like me, identify what those talents are and help them see the great contribution that they in particular and uniquely can make, we find more engagement, we find more satisfaction, people rate their quality of life higher, and they're more productive and successful, frankly, in the relationships and in the workplace and in the school environment. So StrengthsFinder, that assessment is just one of many tools that are available. There's VIA, there's Top 5 and High 5, but all of these tools are meant to help us mine for strengths, identify how we're wired. Even in my own family, I have had my college age kiddos take their strengths assessment. And it really affirmed kind of what we already saw, but it gave validity and is giving my sons confidence. I've got one who's very engineering focused, very linear, always very capable in school. And for him to see that he also has some really thoughtful and strategic and also relational talents woven in there. And that is his secret sauce. He's not just a machine. He is a thinker with a heart. And it was really fun to say, and that's why you've enjoyed these projects. And that's why you have deep friendships and enjoy working with those people on these projects. And that was a really fun conversation. And we are continuing it as he invests in his talents to make them stronger. My other son, his assessment showed some extraordinary relational skills. And while these are not measured often or in any important way in a traditional school setting, they are his foot forward. And his empathy and his adaptability are remarkable. And so to be reminding him as he's moving through college and coming up against various challenges to say, okay, what we know about you is you're extremely effective in relationship building. How can you use that in this situation? Or don't forget how adaptable and flexible you are. So you're going to have to help those around you pivot as well. You bring a lot of security and peace to them by helping them also adjust in this situation. My hope is that it's really affirming who they naturally are, that they lean into that more. Because when we're using our sweet spots, when we're in our sweet spot, we're in our zone, we are more effective and more content. Along with that, though, and Audrey, this is hugely important. When we identify our natural strengths and talents, we also identify what we're less strong in. And rather than hyper-focusing on those weaknesses, we can say, wow, how can I use my talents in a different way to still accomplish that goal? Or better yet, we are designed to be interpersonal creatures. Who do I partner with? Who do I align with? Who do I ask for help? I do feel like we have been in a season of teaching young people to be an island. You have to be all things unto yourself. That does not create a happy future for any of us. But if we can say, wow, I really do better on these projects when I have someone who's a better time manager than me, or I really do well in this kind of thing when I have someone who helps me plan, and to develop deep friendships and partnerships with our spouses, with our colleagues at work, or with our friends on the team or at school, teaching the importance of and the essentialness of interpersonal connections and partnerships, I think, is one of our biggest gifts we can give to our kids so they don't end up an island.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you had just covered so much there. One of the things I was thinking is we kind of as parents need to take that role of helping our kids find their strengths, because culture at large is not going to help unless your child happens to have the strengths that are, celebrated in school, and which some kids do have that. If they don't have those specific skills and strengths, that is a problem, because they will be looking around, they will be hearing from teachers and coaches that they are not enough. And so I really do think that it falls to us as parents to be, I think you referred to it before, like MacGyver, chasing our kids' strengths and interests and being the ones who help see in them those great fun qualities. And I do think, to me, it seems like school puts it in such focus because they spend so much time there. And I know, one of my kids, she went to a very competitive high school. She's a very hard worker. So she did fine in school, but it was a lot of work for her to get those grades that she wanted. And she is, her relational skills are through the roof. And so those things were not really celebrated by the staff at the school. They didn't really see in her. They were very focused on like what she was doing in classes. And so she never got put in any honors classes or that kind of thing. So she was feeling not enough, even though, wow, she was the greatest friend and everything else. And so actually after she got out of there and has been in different environments, she's now feeling so much enough because she's seeing in herself, oh my gosh, this is what I'm good at. And I am a really good hard worker. And when I take these kind of classes that I'm really interested in, I do great. And so I just think that we need to encourage parents if, we have older kids now, but if parents have younger kids, or actually any age, because even into adulthood, you and I can encourage each other on our own strengths, is just being those people that see the good in our kids and looking at them and saying, oh my gosh, you have the best sense of humor. You make us all laugh so much. And it is so fun to be around you. And when you're around, everyone is happier. So those kinds of things that you're not going to get a grade in school, like you talked about earlier, just talking like things that you can't measure. Strengths testing sometimes measures those things that aren't measured normally.
That's right. And when we get to be validated for how we are naturally made and how we naturally move forward in life, how we naturally feel, behave, and think, that validates our personhood too. And I know that as we're launching our older young adults now, I want them to have utter confidence in who they are, because then they will make wiser decisions. They won't be chasing identity and trying things that, not that I don't want them to try new things, but medicating the pain, perhaps not being enough. We all want them to be standing on their own 2 feet. And it's fun when kids are young I think it's such a blast to really try to identify what their natural talents are. We call it mining for strength, like as you mine for gold, and asking these kinds of questions. What activities does my little guy keep going back to? What activities does my daughter lose herself in? Time falls away. What have my kids done they didn't need to be taught how to do? What do they do well that they had never done before? What comes easy to them? What kind of analogies do they compare everything else to? Do they always use baseball analogies? Do they always use cooking analogies? Do they use photography analogies? That's really a fun one. And as we start seeing these aspects of our children, we get to start asking them questions. Wow, you seemed really proud of that event you helped put on, or that project you did. Tell me why that was fun for you. Tell me what you loved most about it. and then help them name their talents. For them to say, well, I started thinking about it, and then I wrote down my plan, and then I did it. We get to affirm, wow, I love how you scheduled your time. I love how you thought about it first and then made a plan and then moved forward. What other places can you practice making a plan before you move forward? We can totally transfer these little mini steps, these little mini talents to bigger and bigger life experiences. And the more we can help our kids name their talents and name their sweet spot, name the unique contribution they bring to the team, the more confidence they have internally, not externally where they're just waiting for the grade.
Oh my gosh. I also think it's really, when you do get into the workplace, as you were just mentioning, I started thinking about the different people I work with and how the magic comes in the mix of people. Because so like for me, I love sitting around and like coming up with these really cool ideas, and I can get things done, but I can't get all of my ideas done because I have too many of them. So I have this amazing team of people who really help make it happen. So like my husband is a complete like organized, analytical, like make the list, make a decision, move forward. And I realized when you were talking about that whole teamwork thing that you do better. Like we rise by lifting others. And a lot of that comes with that team thing and knowing that if you have the ability to plan and organize and strategically figure things out, and someone else has this like creative kind of crazy idea, together you can actually do really amazing things. And so rather than comparing yourself to the other person, so, oh, why can't I be more organized like that and do things so in order and linearly? Instead, you can say, okay, well, you know what? I bring something. I bring my strength. You bring yours. And together, wow, it's like amazing. I love that concept. And I think our kids, when they're applying for jobs, it's really good if they can speak well to their strengths and also to their lesser strengths or their weaknesses. Honestly, because if you're applying for a job that requires certain things, I think if they can go in and say, you know, this is what I'm really good at. I'm really good at, you know, the creative aspects, the ideation, the coming up with these things. My strengths are not in like the planning and, you know, whatever, organization. Because you want to be honest with people, because you won't do well at a job if you're applying for a job that needs one thing and you don't have that. It's not going to be rewarding for you or the employer.
Exactly. I think also identifying talents and strengths and understanding the need for partnering and for, you know, leaning on each other to complete the package really helps with potential conflict. We often can get really irritated at someone who's not just like me. Well, you know, they don't communicate at the level I communicate. And so I can be disappointed in them when instead of realizing, oh my goodness, thankfully they're so thoughtful about this. Their risk assessment has saved us from, you know, going down the wrong path. And so that piece of celebrating, and I've had to learn to celebrate more. I'm such a high achiever and I have too much responsibility. It's a problem for me that I forget to say, hooray, look what happened. Hooray for you and what you brought. Hooray for us and what we accomplished. I just go on to the next thing. So thankfully I have someone on my team that stops us all and says, let's not forget to be grateful and to celebrate and to see who brought what to the mix. And so it's really, really been helpful to honor what everybody else is bringing and be grateful we're not all just the same.
Okay, so as you were talking, I just started thinking about how, I mean, so many things in life, you know, the way we teach our kids is modeling it ourselves. And I know you and I have talked a lot about strengths, and we, of course, both take all the strengths tests ourselves. And I actually had you analyze mine, which was so fun. I need to do the full coaching, but we got just a brief overview. And I just have to tell the funny story about that. So I took my Gallup strengths test. And of course, as I'm sorry, it's the way the brain works, I looked to the bottom of the list to see what was my lesser strength. And my very bottom one was consistency. And I have to tell you, it has been a real relief to me because I have always kind of been down on myself for not being able to do things like at the same time every day or consistently for 30 days in a row. I'm always attracted to those things that are like, you know, 30 days of reading for exactly an hour or all the like very specific things. And I've never been able to follow through. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Other people can do that. Yet I have other strengths. Like I think my top one was activator or something, but I could sit down and write a book in binge spurts, like 5 hours here and 3 hours there and really early in the morning, never at the same time. And it really has been actually a relief to me to be able to embrace, okay, you know what? I have these things that I am good at, and I have these things that are lesser strengths, and it's okay. It's the way I'm made, and we can all still function and do our own thing. But when I look at other people and say, oh, I want to be more like that comparison piece, that doesn't help me move forward or do my best work. And so I think I would really encourage parents to actually pursue their own strengths and figure that out first, maybe even before working on this with their kids. What do you think about that?
Well, I love that idea because hopefully it's we're giving ourselves grace, and we're also taking great enjoyment in how we're wired. You said it just a few minutes ago that a lot of how we teach our kids is by modeling for them. And when I'm either always writing myself and putting myself down about, oh, I didn't do this, and oh, they entertain better than us, or oh, he writes better grants than I do, or whatever the comparison is, I am teaching my kids that I don't think I'm enough either. And to be able to model, wow, that's not my forte, so I called and asked so-and-so to help with that, and boy, did we have fun, and we knocked it out of the park. Now I'm modeling, let's grab a partner and do this well. I also think that by identifying our own talents and then learning about our kids, we can see what we share with them, and we can see how we're different. And sometimes those things will trigger that irritability, or trigger a sense of disappointment, or even trigger a sense of fear. They're not like me. What if they can't do it their way? And we get to gain some trust of, wow, they're wired so differently. How beautiful is that? I can't wait to see how they launch or how they accomplish that. And what can my contribution be to them being their true self? All this, it excites me. There are people who don't love this like you and I love this, Audrey.
How could they not?
But I think the self-knowledge is really important. And probably one of my favorite things that has come out of my husband and I doing our assessments is I get to be really specific with the words I use to affirm him. And instead of, hey, thanks for doing that planning, I can say, thank you for taking the time and, really mapping that out. This is why it was helpful to me. And I hadn't even thought of that. That gives me a lot of security. And I trust you so much that you can do this when I cannot. And we both have grown in our ability to appreciate each other. And that is never a bad thing in a marriage, especially when we work together. And I want my kids to see that too. Daddy's good at this. Let's learn from him. He's the expert at this, so let's ask him. Or, hey, I'm here to help with this. It kind of comes easily to me. Let me give you a process that I use, and maybe that'll be helpful to you.
Oh, that is just so great. And as you were talking, we have to do a whole nother episode on siblings, but just briefly, I think that's also very true. If we can get our kids to see each other's strengths more, I think that's very helpful as well, because then they are encouraging each other and not comparing to each other. Because I think that can be a really big problem with sibling relationships when, a sibling is looking at another one and saying, oh, they're so much better than I am at this. And then sometimes parents play into that too. Like, why can't you be more like so-and-so? And so I think it's really important that we take this, first learn about ourselves, and then we're modeling it for our kids in how we live. And then we're also encouraging them in how they live with others too, just to focus on each other's strengths and their own rather than this comparison piece. I mean, boy, would the world be a happier place if we weren't all comparing all the time.
It's true. And that also reinforces opportunities to chase new interests and dabble in new things, not for the purpose of being the most excellent, but for the purpose of taking a positive risk, trying something, simply enjoyment. And, we're getting kids specializing in elementary school. And if we quit being lifelong learners, our adult life is going to be a lot less than it could be. Just even over Christmas, we learned to surf.
Yeah.
How fun. When was the last time you did something for the first time, right? Mm. And, so to chase interests and dabble in new things, to enjoy a sibling is trying something new and thinking that's awesome. For you to be the loudest voice to your brother or your sister to say, hey, I'm coming to see that play. I could never stand on a stage in front of a bunch of people. I'm going to be in the front row and you're going to hear me clap. What a meaningful part of a relationship.
Oh my gosh, that's just beautiful. Well, I think we need to wrap things up. I see a lot of, we're going to have to have a lot of resources in the show notes for this episode. And one of them was those questions that you asked that I think we can ask ourselves about our kids, but we can also ask about ourselves. Let's put those into like a downloadable thing. You can just send them to me and I'll get it set up. But I think that it would be really nice just to be able to print out those questions and think about or have a family discussion about them or whatever you want to do with them. But I think looking first at ourselves and then at our kids. And boy, if we all think more about our strengths and what we like about ourselves and stop spending so much time just being down on ourselves about the things we're not, the world, I think, would be a lot better and our families would certainly be a lot happier.
Absolutely. I agree. And it eases off a lot of the pressure we put on ourselves to be a certain kind of parent and to make our kids a certain kind of human being. We're all just doing our darndest, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Okay, thanks so much for being on, Sara. It was so fun chatting with you again.
Good to be with you.
For notes on everything Sara and I talked about in this episode, as well as links to other podcasts we've recorded about strengths and blog posts I've written on the topic, visit my website at sunshine-parenting.com and search for episode 77. I've written and shared a lot about strengths in recent years. I'm going to end this episode with a line from one of my blog posts entitled 4 Ways to Focus on Our Kids' Strengths. We are happier when we spend more time focusing and building upon our strengths than remediating our weaknesses. This is as true for children and teenagers as it is for adults.
This podcast is a proud member of Parents on Demand, a network of high-quality shows for families just like yours. Download our free network app on Apple and Android and listen to your favorite episodes on the go.